Welcome to Digital Stations. The show where we explore the fast-paced world of innovation, gadgets, and digital breakthrough. From the latest technology trends and news to how technology is shaping our lives like AI, we bring you insightful discussions, expert opinions, and the stories behind the tech that power our world. So plug in, tune in, and get ready to embark on a new journey through the future right here on Digital Stations.
Hello again, our dear listeners. I would like to introduce my guest here today in the studio, Mr. Naeem Mirza. Perhaps the listeners don't know who is Mr. Naeem. I know you are a specialist, you are expert in the field.
Great, thank you very much. I'm academically an engineer. Did my master's as well from United States. I used to write code, programming, and then I ran data centers, and I have led a few multinationals across the region. And all this time I have developed this passion of AI, robotics, how can robotics help different industry verticals in healthcare industry, in education industry, and of course all the Industrial Revolution 4.0, which also has the applications within the cybersecurity domain. So we do very specialized AI futuristic work, and I feel very fortunate to be in the position that I can add value to the society.
Well, this is very interesting. I know you also, as you are mentioning, that you have been experiencing in a lot of information technology, and I remember the first meeting with you in one of the conferences, the IT conferences, if you remember, with your robots.
So with the robotics and any technology, I feel that we should serve humanity, and humans should always be first, and robots and technology should always be making life easier for us and making it more sustainable. So one of the latest interests that I have developed is how can technology really help the sustainability? How can we make sure that the planet Earth remains healthy? From enterprise perspective or our individual actions, how can we make sure that we are not hurting the planet Earth? So that's my latest passion.
Wow, this is a very cute. So our dear listeners, we are going to talk with Mr. Naeem Mirza. As you have heard, he is very much specialized, well educated, and of course he has a passion with robotics.
More information about robots.
Mr. Naeem, we spoke earlier about the robotics and AI to us. So I would like, before we go into the specialized applications of robotics and perhaps education and healthcare and what have you, we would like to speak more about the robots.
That's a great question. So I'd like to start from a high level. There are two kinds of robots. One are service robots, and the second are industrial robots. So industries would be places where, like large oil and gas companies, where they would use, or manufacturing would use them. But there's a different kind of robot, which is the humanoid robots. And those are the robots, they would never replace humans, take our job. They would do the jobs that we don't want to do. Absolutely. I'll give you a very small example. So that robot can navigate to the individual and say, Mr. Mirza, how are you doing today?
Wow.
And so because that robot can actually recognize the person with the facial recognition feature.
Exactly. That's an interesting thing. So they can recognize those persons with the face recognition technology.
And not only that, it can actually detect whether the person is feeling happy or sad. When we think for robot making cars, for example, those are referred to as industrial robots. And then there's another kind of robot, which is called humanoid robots. They kind of look like humans, but not as huge. And those humanoid robots have become an integral part of our life. So they add value to our lives in healthcare industry, in education industry. So think of education where children who cannot go to school or they're homebound for whatever reason, but they still can continue their education. And likewise in the healthcare industry, I can give you an example where a person in an elderly home could be going through the experiences of loneliness, depression, and anxiety. So imagine a robot walks up to that person and says, Mr. Mirza, how are you doing? And the robot can actually see, not only recognize my face, but can also see if I'm feeling happy or not. Based on, once it detects that I'm feeling not happy, then we can, using the technology or AI, AI, we can do a database connectivity and look up whether what should we do for, let's say, Mr. Mirza to feel happy. Now imagine I want to see a picture of a fishing trip that I did with my son or my daughter. The robot could actually ask me, Mr. Mirza, would you like to see the pictures of the last fishing trip that you did 2 months ago? And I would say, let's say yes. Okay. And so the robot can actually pull out that image or a video and display it on the screen.
Very nice.
Now imagine if I see those, if we all see our old pictures of having fun, we all feel good generally, right? With that experience, robots would be able to enable a down person into a happy person. So for a robot to recognize the face of a human, we have to feed it at least 5 or 6 pictures so that the robot knows that this is the person, that's what he looks like or she looks like. And only then the robot can actually recognize. It basically does a match. And then once it does the match, then based on there are about 7 different physical points in our human face that it looks at and says, well, whether these dots are, let's say when we smile, so we physically look, our lips go a little bit wider, and then, so it based on those algorithms or the large language models, we keep on hearing about these LLMs a lot nowadays. So, and then we do the algorithms optimization on it, put a statistical number, whether if the facial lips are this degree, then that 70% of the time this person is happy or not.
Well, that's very interesting. I would like to continue on this issue, quite honestly, of the robot usage in different areas. How can we use those robotics in, for example, and for the special need students or boys or girls?
Right. So this is an area that I'm really very close to my heart. And I believe the AI and robotics is probably the best thing that has happened to children and people with special need. Now, so let's take an example of a special need person. There is no perfect solution for autism. So their only best case scenarios can be achieved once an early intervention is achieved. So children as young as 2 or 3 years old can be assessed and diagnosed. Now today what happens is those needs are being addressed by very qualified therapists, and then they're all excellent, educated, board certified and everything. But at the end of the day, those therapists are humans. After 12 or 15 hours of work, we all feel tired. Our patience level goes down a little bit. But if you compare that to the robot, a robot would never get tired. The robot would not take a break to go to the washroom or would not take a break to eat food. And they can deliver the same message accurately. And the best part is it can provide you with the progressive analytics. Specific therapy has been prescribed to an individual. And then you would want to see whether this therapy is actually helping the person or not helping. Is it effective? Or think of it, a child who was diagnosed with autism at an age of, let's say, 3. Mashallah, they live at age 40, 50, 60, as long as their life is. Now, they would have a huge stack of reports of all the prognosis that their therapists have taken and they have handwritten or typed up. Now, if a new person to come in and for them to assess 10 years of reports, you're looking at a huge stack of files for them to be able to go through and then assess what has worked and what has not worked. Whereas in the case of a robot can have all this information in the database, instantaneously do a lookup and provide immediate feedback. This therapy worked, this did not work on that day. So it can do a graphical information onto the therapist so that they can make a more mature and more informed decisions to help that person. I'll give you an example of one of the robots that we actually took. We were very honored to engage with one of the local Kuwait-based autism centers. They asked me to come in for like 1 hour to do this, engaging how does the children with special needs. So we went there. Our meeting was scheduled for 1 hour. Even though the meeting was scheduled for 1 hour, we walked out after 4.5 because it was such an engaging experience with the children with special needs. And their supervisors saw the sides that they had never seen before. People, because in special needs, or specifically in autism, it comes into 2 categories. One are verbal, who can speak, and one are non-verbal. So both different categories of children with special needs were so engaging with the robot that their supervisors had to tell them, okay, your turn is done, now you go away. It's a nice next person's turn. So it was very satisfying and very encouraging, not only for us, but also supervisors and the therapists. And the fact that they said that they saw the sides of children that they had never seen before.
The attraction to those special needs with the robot, in a sense that they didn't see in the therapist or their instructors, is this because it is something new other than human beings, although it resembles or it looks like it is a human?
Right. For one, the robot's physical shape looks like a toy. And we all know that children nowadays, they're more receptive to technology, iPhones or iPads and
smart
devices. And also the physical face of the robot looks more like a toy, but it's a very, very intelligent toy. So they feel attracted to it. And the robot is actually designed by professionals, by a Japanese firm. It's a multinational firm who designed it. So they kept all these likeliness or dislikeliness of people, how well they will perceive it. So the robot, for example, should not appear intimidating, should not be very large so that people actually feel scared of it. It has to be something that, human is always in control. So one, they get attracted by the shape of the robot. Then they become more engaged because the robot is very interactive. So for example, let's say you say to the robot, Salam alaikum, the robot will actually recognize and it will actually respond with saying alaikum assalam. And it will not respond the same every time. Let's say if you say marhaba, the robot will actually say marhaba as well. We can put different dialects as well. I want to share a little funny story of one of the conversations that we were engaging with an Egyptian PhD doctor. I mean, he was engineer and then very, very knowledgeable. And so during the interaction, he said, well, does this robot speak Egyptian? Why don't you try it? And he said, Azayek. And then the robot responded, Amile. So he really enjoyed that. But the key thing is that we can program that robot to put different dialects. So Kuwaiti aspect of it, Saudi and GCC. But I do believe at the same time, we need to have more research and development done onto the robots because the Arabization data set needs to be integrated and needs to be input into the robotics algorithms.
Artificial intelligence, all about AI.
What the Arabization process into the robots, because we are not the manufacturers of robots, don't you think this could be hindering the advancements and applications of robots?
It's a very vital area that you touched upon, Dr. Herbie, because there are, and currently today, all the big giants, technology giants that are like Microsoft, Google, and all the big ones, they are very, very aggressively working on developing their own humanoid robots. So it presents a significant challenge for people in this region, because imagine if you want the robot to do something very unique or different, because culturally there are differences, and in our Muslim culture here, it's different from culture in Japan. So for us to, unless we have those robotics built here in the Arab region, we would always be dependent on somebody else to make that change, which may or may not be in their roadmap. So I emphasize and encourage that we must develop the robotics facilities here in the Arab region.
I agree with you. You know why, Mr. Naim? It is always good to be manufacturer of technology. Of course, we can go to the universities as you have been. I have been to the UK, and then we can always educate ourselves or educate our students. But to build from scratch a factory for robotics applications, for really robots to be built and assembled, I think this is a dream, perhaps a big challenge also, because it needs a lot of manual programming. As you mentioned, you are a programmer, and these robots don't work without pre-programming, as you mentioned, database to be fed to it so that it knows, as you mentioned, the dialect, the languages, and the behavior, and the face recognition, for example, even the arm, even the temperatures. So when they measure and see those variables, they need to react accordingly, has been put to them. I agree with you, but I think we really come to a stage when we are really needing this technology to be in our hands so that we can employ our people, and then we can have specialized, with the heritage of the country, so that this robot could be Burashid, for example, or Busalim, we can call it, and then it will be behaving like this. I would like to thank you, Mr. Naim, for being with us for today, for the knowledge, and I'm really pleased to have you with us as a guest in this show, and we hope also to carry on for the future to get some of your experience. Thank you very much.
I'm very honored, and I would love to, if there are people who are interested interested in having these robots built in the region, I'll be very happy to collaborate with them.
Thank you very much. Our dear listeners, with this we come to the end of the Digital Stations radio show. Hope you have been following us and learned more about what robots can do for humans. Thank you very much and stay tuned for the next episode of the show. Till then, goodbye.